Everyone. Welcome to the Totally Well Show. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. The Totally Well Show is a place where we get curious, ask questions, and explore everything to do with health, wellness, fitness, personal development, helping people, and all the things it takes to help you live the highest quality, most fulfilling life. My guest today is my friend Alex Herrera. He is CEO and founder of Palm Organix. We're going to learn some of the basics about CBD, the different types. Palm Organix in particular has a broad spectrum, but we're going to learn all about that and the different cannabinoids we can talk about. Also safety, finding a good quality product and where to buy. So this is an introduction. I'm sure we're going to do more shows with Alex. I had a lot of fun chatting with him. So I hope you enjoy the show and reach out to Alex Herrera or to me if you have questions about CBD. Hey, Alex, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really, really doing well. Thank you for coming. And just so that my guests know who you are, Alex Herrera, who is CEO and founder of Palm Organix. Did I get that right?
You got it right, Joyce. Yep. I'm the CEO and founder of Palm Organix.
So I found you from, friends and connections on LinkedIn. We started talking and my interest in CBD. I think in the background, I told you I taught a class at the local hospital on CBD, and I see a lot of interest, particularly with people my age. I'm 66 and older. The boomers are really into this. And I've seen some of my patients purchasing CBD, and I really wanted to be able to advise them because I see also people spending more than I think is reasonable for stuff.
Yes, I agree.
Anyway, I wanted to find out how you got into the CBD business and what interested you, a little bit about you personally.
Sure. So thank you, Joyce. So yeah, like you mentioned, I'm Alex Herrera, and I am, just a regular guy. I'm 50 years old. I raised a family. I live in New Jersey. I have, wife and 4 children, and I come from a financial background. Mm-hmm. And then I was, an investor, and I had a network of co-investors, and we did a lot of, investing in, real estate and just kind of very traditional, boring type of things. And then sometime around 2015 and 2016, we started seeing, opportunities to invest in, medical marijuana or even greenhouses or hydroponics or fertilizers for marijuana and hemp. And we started seeing more and more of those opportunities. And so I started, digging a little bit. And obviously at the time there was the Farm Bill Act was at the time called the 2014 Farm Bill Act, which became the 2018 Farm Bill Act. And then I found out about this product called CBD, which was like, what's CBD? I never even heard of what CBD was. And so we learned that CBD predominantly comes from the hemp plant, and it's much different than marijuana, although they're commonly associated together. And so with some further digging in, I thought that this was, would be a great industry to kind of follow and watch. And then in 2018, Mitch McConnell kind of got the Farm Bill Act passed and approved. And my wife, ironically, who's my partner, Karen, she has a very strong background in health policy. She's had a health policy degree from a major university, and she worked in nursing homes, and she was more familiar with CBD than me. And so she said that this is an industry that we should really think about getting involved in. So what started out as looking to potentially become an investor in an existing CBD company became something where we ended up actually starting it ourselves. And we started it ourselves for numerous reasons. We wanted to help people, but we also thought that the CBD industry that we saw, the landscape was riddled with, people, I guess, refer to it as the wild, wild west. So there was it was difficult to find, a great CBD product that had great management in place. So it was the 3-legged stool, right? You had, maybe the person had great product, but they had poor management skills, or they had great management, but they had poor quality CBD or coming from hemp. And so I thought, why don't we give this a go ourselves? And so, we launched the business about a year ago, a little over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And, we worked backwards. We worked backwards and said, let's go out and find the best, highest quality industrial grade hemp and start building our product from backwards. So, we didn't start with marketing. We started by getting great sourcing for great industrial hemp. And so that's how we got into it. Mm-hmm. I actually used it also a little bit myself my first experience with CBD was as a topical, which I applied to like a troubled spot. And I was just in awe as to how well it worked. So that's kind of how we started.
Wow. Fascinating. So in doing research myself and being able to provide an educational platform for people to learn, I discovered that there's different kinds of CBD as far as whether or not it's full spectrum, broad spectrum, and or isolate.
Sure.
And also different delivery systems, and how, like you mentioned, you put something topical, and I've seen tinctures and different things. So I think it would be great to kind of review for the listeners what the differences are, just in the basics on the, I know that from reading your website that you've focused on the broad spectrum, which
Correct.
is THC free.
Correct.
So maybe if you could just answer some questions on that difference between full, broad, isolate, and then the various cannabinoids and terpenes and things like that.
Okay, sure, great. So that's a great question. That's actually, we actually have a retail store as well. So that's a question that people are just always, it's very confusing, even for me. I think it's sometimes.
Where's your store?
Our store is actually at the Palisades Center in West Nyack, New York.
Okay.
It's at the mall. It's one of the largest malls in the country.
Yeah.
So we have people that walk in daily and just say, like, what is this? Like, tell us about this. Like, I see it everywhere. I don't understand just what you said. What is broad spectrum, full spectrum? I see it on Amazon. I see it at the gas station. Like, can you please help me? So.
Yeah.
So
when you by being there at the store, you have people who are educated, trained, studied this, who can answer questions and help people make good choices.
Yeah. So I like to say that my wife, Karen, that's her baby. So she can be found there. I have to drag her out of the store. She loves it, and she loves helping people. And
yeah. So
she's there every day, Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 5:30, and then comes home reluctantly, I think. And then and then on weekends, we have highly educated, we have people we pay significantly more than minimum wage to just really have people who understand the product, because this is real life stuff, right? There's people walking in and saying, this is something that's been going on in my life. Can you help me? Yeah. And since CBD is not FDA approved, you have to be very careful what you represent and what you don't represent. And we never make any medical representations whatsoever. But there is a lot of, let's say, unscrupulous people in this business. And I think that we're just trying to make a dollar, I think, rather than trying to help people and put a good product out there. So, the first thing, like you said, is like, what are the differences? So I think the first thing we should talk about is just quickly is the Farm Bill Act, which passed in December of last year, makes industrial hemp products, which is what commonly CBD is made from, legal federally, as long as it contains less than 0.3% THC. Mm-hmm. So a product must contain less than 0.3% THC, which stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, which is what makes you high. That's the ingredient that's in marijuana at a high level. So the cannabis plant has hemp as one strain and has marijuana as the other strain. Most people use.
When you say marijuana, that is when it has higher THC?
Yeah, so the plants are almost identical. So the hemp plant and the marijuana plant look identical, and they used to refer to hemp as poor man's weed in the 60s, because you'd smoke it and it wouldn't get high because it has low levels of THC inherently. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's it has all the same qualities of the marijuana plant, and the main difference is the THC level. So hemp.
And so THC is just one of the cannabinoids of the many cannabinoids.
There's 113, roughly 113 cannabinoids in hemp and marijuana and in the hemp plant. And so they look identical, they smell identical, and the hemp plant just has a much, much lower inherently level of THC. So that's the preferred plant to use to make CBD, because you have to get it below 0.3%. If you're not buying, if you want a higher level of THC, you're then buying what's called medical marijuana, right? You're going to a licensed medical marijuana store and buying a higher level of THC.
Now, is it true that the low THC, high CBD plant is the pollinated plant, as opposed to how they breed them and kill the males off and just keep the female for the higher THC?
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's correct. And so what we do is we actually use a grower out of Colorado that grows what's called it calls it PCR hemp, which stands for a phytocannabinoid rich. So you want to get a plant that has high levels of the cannabinoids. So the cannabinoids, and then you mentioned the flavonoids and the terpenes, are what you want. And that comes from the leaves, the flowers, and the stems, right? So those are the desirable parts of the hemp plant. So to answer your question, so the most common brands or the most common types of CBD that you see available are what you mentioned, which is full spectrum. So full spectrum, it contains all of the cannabinoids, 113 of them. and includes THC, but they got to get the THC down at 0.3% or less.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a full spectrum brand. The next most popular brand is called Broad Spectrum, which has everything that full spectrum has, except the THC is removed, not removed below 0.3, it is completely removed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very popular strain of CBD because there's many people that have, for either religious beliefs, for work requirements, athletic performances, whatever, they just refuse to take THC. Mm-hmm. So, and they also think that if you take a 0.3 THC numerous times a day for weeks upon weeks, it can stay in your system and people can't afford to fail a drug test or whatever. So people like the broad spectrum. That's the brand that we went with, or the variety we went with. Mm-hmm. We sell exclusively a broad spectrum. There's zero THC in our product. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that there's an isolate. Isolate would be taking one of those terpenes and CBD and one of those cannabinoids and just isolating it, as the word says, and just being that component, mm-hmm. which is the third, I guess, most popular form of CBD. So you have full spectrum, the whole plant, and THC, broad spectrum, everything minus THC, and an isolate, which is taking out one of the components, whether it's CBD N or A or whatever, they're taking it out. They're just selling that isolate.
So there's a term I learned in studying this called Entourage Effect, which I think is a very sexy way to say whole food.
Yes.
So the full and the broad would have that entourage, that whole food effect, as opposed to the isolate, which would just be CBD itself.
Correct. And so what you end up happening, this is kind of a highly debated word, the entourage effect. So what the full spectrum people like to argue is, hey, if you don't take it full spectrum, you're not getting the entourage effect, right? And so the broad spectrum people, like myself included, would say, no, you do get the entourage effect, and 0.3% THC or 0.2% is not going to make the entourage effect work or not work. So so that's something where I think people are debating. But the entourage effect, as opposed to the entourage effect, what it says is that all of the ingredients combined together will make for the benefits of the entire plant.
Right. Well, that's the argument I give with having, as a nutrition coach, right? I do functional nutrition, having people eat whole food, because the benefit of the whole, as opposed to a supplement or other, the way food can be processed and things extracted from it. So I like to say there's no way we can really tell the benefit of the whole food other than just history, just over evolution, that we've grown on this. Our species has grown on this. So what we would say that, look, we think that a high quality, to me, there's lots of hemp out there, right? So I think that, to stereotype, USA grown hemp in highly nutrient rich soils in the Midwest, that grow a phytocannabinoid rich, a heavy terpenes and CBD plant is what's desirable. I think one of the things you should be wary about are Asian hemp and Eastern European hemp. Both of those are known for having inconsistent levels of both THC and CBD, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting a product that has high levels of CBD on a ratio to the hemp extract, right? We can talk about. I understand too, the hemp plant is a bioaccumulator, like many of our foods, like broccoli, for example. And so where it's grown is very important to me, because first, do no harm. I want to make sure I'm not getting heavy metals or pulling stuff out of the soil. So is it true? I've heard Colorado, Kentucky, certain places, California in the United States is safer for that reason because of the laws. Is that true?
True. So you hit the 3 states. So I would say there's 4 states. So it would be Colorado, Kentucky, California, and Oregon are heavy producers of high quality hemp. And I think, that question you asked, which I guess I would segue into saying that, you want to look for a supplier that is purchasing or using industrial hemp that is organically grown. Mm-hmm. And then you want to look for, the first thing that a buyer of CBD should be looking for is what's called certificates of quality assurance. And that comes from your supplier. And just exactly what you said, you want to be looking at their certificate of quality assurance to make sure that there's no heavy metals, no pesticides, no leads, no fillers in the product. And that's the first kind of, so I have three steps I always tell the people that walk in is, the first question you want to ask any CBD retailer is, where do you get your CBD from? Like, who is your supplier? And we say it loudly and stand on top of a rock and say, we use a company called Folium Biosciences. They're located in Colorado. They're the largest fully integrated supplier of industrial hemp, considered to be the premier hemp. They grow PCR hemp. The second question is, do they come with certificates of quality assurance? Absolutely, 100%. And that product information is available, or should be available, from a reputable retailer, not only on their website, but it should also be available. We do it on a QR code on our bottles. We stamp and label our bottles. So you can just go to My CBD Test and Seeds reports. And then the third, which I think is the most important step, is, okay, then you send out that product and get it third-party lab tested. So you don't want to just take Folium's word for it or any supplier's word for it. So you want to check, because there's been companies out there that say, oh, no, we farm this ourselves and it's a family business and everything is organic. Well, guess what? It gets tested by a third party and it has lead in it or whatever. So you want to make sure it's tested not once, but twice.
Okay. Yeah, that's called the COA, that third party, the certificate of analysis.
Yeah, well, I think the certificate of quality assurances would be from the supplier, and then the COAs we call also third-party lab testing.
From the third-party lab testing.
Yeah, right. So it's always important to have a third-party lab test as well.
And things that are tested in that, from what I understood, are the heavy metals, but also pesticides and even bacteria, things that could be. So if you're getting a salve and you're putting it on your skin and you have an open wound, and this is not, there's no preservatives in it, it could actually be growing very harmful bacteria.
100%. And then, like you said, those certificates have, probably 20, 30 things that they're checking for. So you always obviously want to be checking, hey, I'm buying a 500 milligram CBD product. It doesn't have 500 milligrams. That's the other thing to be very wary about is, what is being bottled and sold to you, how can you prove that label is accurate, right? So the certificates show that to you. So the certificates in the lab test will say, we sell a 900 milligram CBD bottle and it has 900 milligrams of CBD, or 898, so you have to be careful about the unscrupulous merchant who says it's 900 milligrams of CBD and when it's tested, it has 200, and they're just doing that to make extra dollars.
Right. And that's why I tell people, don't buy it at the gas station, because they can't advise you. Don't buy it on Amazon, because the Amazon doesn't even permit it. So that's definitely black market. And, being careful. So it's really great to have a face to the product name, and that transparency and way to connect and ask questions and get responses back from knowledgeable people.
Yeah. And so, just to touch on your Amazon comment. So, and I will give credit to my wife, she deserves a million times credit, but she was the one who said, let's open the store to differentiate ourselves from just the online seller. So today we sell product three ways. We sell online, which is the biggest part of our business. We have a store, and we sell wholesale. Yeah. But people walk into our store, and we could talk about, different delivery types, but the question they always say to me is, oh my God, I buy my CBD on Amazon and it's cheaper than yours. Yeah. And I look at them, and it's kind of a difficult thing to say to somebody, to say, you're not really buying CBD or hemp extract on Amazon. And they look at me like I'm nuts. And I say, because Amazon doesn't permit it to be sold on their website. What you're buying likely is just what's called hemp seed oil, which is the seeds of the plant that they press, much like you press olive oil or grapeseed oil. And so there's no medicinal value to it, but they put a little leaf on the bottle and make it look like it's a marijuana plant, and they sell it or they price it at a price point that's, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, couple questions I have. One has to do with dosing, well, also delivery system, but how it's extracted, I didn't realize was as important as it is. CO2, ethanol, or some of the harmful chemicals, that actually the extraction process itself can be quite dangerous, which is why I wouldn't buy it from somebody who's doing it in their basement or their garage.
Yeah, they can hurt themselves as well doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the different extraction? What do you know about that?
So there's, so extraction is, so I do know Folium has some proprietary methods of removing the THC. So it's fair. So as you're extracting, so before I talk about supercritical CO2 or ethanol, as you're extracting, right? So the magic to the process, and which is why you need a high-end supplier, is as you're extracting and reducing THC levels to get to compliance below 0.3, you're also extracting everything else, right? So Folium has patent pending technology where they can extract using supercritical CO2 and ethanol, and also be able to just remove the THC. So let me just see if I can explain it this way. So if you don't have sophisticated extraction and you're using, you know, a low end supplier, as they're extracting the THC to get it to the levels that can be sold federally legally, they're also removing the important stuff. So there's an art to it. But again, the most common ways they're doing it, and I would say the most common ways is CO2. So they call it supercritical CO2 extraction, which involves pressure and extreme temperatures. And so it's certainly something that, you know, you don't want to be doing or I don't want to be doing.
Yeah.
That's how they extract the product. And another way they use it is ethanol. But I think the more preferred way is the supercritical CO2.
Okay. And not things like butane or other dangerous methods that.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people do it that way, but I think you want to be cautious about,
I've heard stay clear. That's what
you want to use something that uses. I'm trying to be nice, but yes, I don't know if the product has butane, involved in the process.
Right. So other things that I've wondered about is the delivery system and the little bit of, it was confusing to me, but it made sense, like what are you using it for and the delivery system. So whether it's a tincture under your tongue or topical or even suppositories or gel caps, so it's going through your GI system. So they'll all act with a different timing, right?
Yeah. So I guess let's see. So the
absorption.
So the absorption rates are high, and you need. So let me talk a little bit about that. So I would say, so when we started our business, and I guess we look pretty smart in hindsight. I may be lucky, but we decided we were not going to do a vape of any kind. So we just didn't want to do vape. Vape is a very popular way to take CBD, mostly because it's probably the fastest. I think it is. It's the fastest way.
Right.
To be absorbed into your body. We just didn't want to have anything to do with the smoking side of it, so we never went that way. So, but the most popular, I think, next to vaping would be tinctures. And tinctures is a word that they use to refer to, just a little bottle that looks like, I'll just show it to you. It looks like a little bottle with a tube on it. And that's, generally they're 30 milliliters or 1 ounce, and the bottle has 30 servings. And the way the tincture works is it's taking what's referred to as, I know you're a nurse, sublingually. So it's a process of applying this oil under your tongue, and it's going into your system through the capillaries in the bloodstream. And it's a very, very fast way to have CBD enter to your body because it goes through the bloodstream.
Right.
So, and I could talk about, which people tend to prefer which different delivery method. So on the tinctures, we found that people that have anxiety, stress, depression, migraines, all the mental types of issues they're trying to deal with are preferring to use tinctures. My suspicion is because it's faster acting.
Right. That would make sense as opposed to a gel cap where it goes through your GI system.
Correct.
I would think that would take longer, but maybe last longer because it's hanging around. Is that right?
I got to get you on the floor at our store. So the second most popular way we sell CBD we have soft gels. And so our soft gels are 100% absorption rate, and they're nano-emulsion technology. So the particles are really small. And so you swallow the soft gel. And so people who are taking soft gels generally are, I would say, the second bucket, which come in, they say they have chronic pain, they have arthritis, sciatica, spine pain, or just chronic body aches. They prefer the soft gels, generally speaking. Not that the tincture doesn't work for them, because it lasts longer. And it's basically one of the other common reasons is because they have a routine of taking their morning pills, and they just add this to the mix.
A lot of times too, and this is where things that come in that a client just came over this morning with her bag of CBD, and she had some real garbage in there with like the gummies and the licorice. And when I looked at all the food coloring and sugar and cornstarch and everything else added to it, I'm like, I don't know if this is canceling each other out.
Yeah. So
she just didn't like the taste. She's looking for something that will help.
Yeah. So, look, the three most popular things we sell, and we do sell gummies, but we sell tinctures, soft gels, our topicals are the three best sellers. We sell a pet line as well. Pets also have an endocannabinoid system, very popular for separation anxiety and, hip joint mobility. But by far, our whole business could really revolve around three products: a tincture, a soft gel, and a topical.
Now, the topicals, are they slower as far as absorbing and not as long acting?
So that I wouldn't say they're slower. They're probably fast. They're on the faster end, but they
Okay.
don't last as long, and you kind of apply as needed. But we actually sell a 450 milligram salve bomb to
Mm-hmm.
salve. It looks like a bomb, like a Burt's
Yeah.
beeswax.
Yeah.
And that goes on, and really people are just amazed at how much it really helps for it. We like to refer to that as targeted relief for
Okay.
spot specific pain. So that's a great product if you have, carpal tunnel syndrome and you're looking for pain relief, or you have a bad shoulder, a bad knee, people apply that someplace. So, you mentioned it earlier, CBD is not an inexpensive product. So if somebody were coming in and they're looking to, take a full approach, a very common thing that people will do to try to alleviate, arthritis or body ache will be they'll buy a soft gel, and they come in different milligrams, and they'll add a topical to try to help them in spot relief.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they can use it in combination. That's
Correct.
interesting. We're going to run out of time before we know it, so I have to make sure you're willing to come back on the show and talk to me again. We'll get in more to talk about other
Absolutely.
uses and all. But I did one of the things I wanted to make sure we covered today, because this is more of an intro to the idea of using CBD, is just something really basic. When I hear phytocannabinoid and endocannabinoid, phyto has to do with the plant, and
Correct.
endo is the system within us. And it just so
Yep.
happens that they line up pretty well together, which is why we get a benefit from the plant. We make
Correct.
our own, though. We have our own system, right?
Yeah. So everybody, yours, mine, including even mammals, pets, dogs. My dog's right there next
All
to me.
mammals, right?
All mammals, they all have an endocannabinoid system. They call it the ECS system.
Yeah.
And the ECS system is the way that the body tries to cure itself and put itself into a state of homeostasis, or also known as balance.
Right. Yeah.
And so, as you put, endo stands for the human part, and phyto is from our high school biology class, plant-based. So
Right.
a phytocannabinoid is going into the body that has an endocannabinoid system. And think about it as like we're trying to supercharge your body's healing process from an all-natural, plant-based cannabinoid that is addictive. You can't overdose. You can't take too much. It's about as holistic as it comes.
It's somewhat of I think of it as a modulator for our systems. And as I think of it, could affect things like our thyroid or our blood sugar, or other things like that. So
Yes. And so it helps the body help itself in healing, right? So it's helping the body get to the place where it wants to be, for healing.
right.
And so that's you hit the nail on the head, right? It's just the endocannabinoid system taking in a phytocannabinoid, the two of them working in conjunction together with the receptors and making the body get to balance and heal itself. That's the whole premise.
Yeah, well, it fascinates me that this is such new science, because I certainly didn't learn this in nursing school. It's all been, what's been available.
Well, let me tell you, Joyce, I've done a couple of these, but you're an expert on CBD. You didn't tell me that before I got on with you.
Well, I'm studying it because I have to teach it. When you put the challenge out there to teach it, then you have to learn it. So, but I keep tapping into, resources like with people like you who can help me. And
Sure.
I really value your expertise and how hard you've studied it, because you didn't go to school for this originally either.
Yeah, hard knocks on this one, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely put your homework in. So, well, we only have about a minute or so left. So I just want to see if there's anything else that you think we can add to this episode of the show. I'm sure we'll talk again and do more teaching together.
Yeah, and I would say one of the other things I would say is that, I think that people should start slow with the product. I think a lot of the vendors are just trying to make $1, so they're trying to push and push. I think the average person tends to do well with somewhere around 25 milligrams of CBD. A lot of our products, we have that as the sweet spot, so our 900 milligram bottle is 30 milligrams per serving. You can take half in the morning, half at night. Our most popular soft gels, we have one blended with curcumin, which I'm sure is part of the turmeric family. And that's a 25 milligram soft gel, but we do a 10 milligram. But, be wary of the retailers telling you need to take, hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of CBD a day. That's not going to be beneficial to you.
Yeah, that's really a great tip. I've heard that more isn't necessarily better. And I like that term, sweet spot, where you can kind of work your way into finding your sweet spot or your right dose.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we've about done it for today, and I really would love to have you come back on and talk with me about more details, just some of the things, the nuances of the terpenes and the different, this cannabinoid is best for this thing and stuff like that, but we just don't have time today. So will you come back?
I would love to come back, and I really appreciate the time and the opportunity. And yeah, like I said, you gave me some really great questions, so I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex, and we'll be talking soon. We'll stay connected.
Thank you, Joyce. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.